coming. My name is Abby Fortune. I want to tell you that today is kind of special for me. It's my birthday, and so I've been 18 for a little less than an hour now, and the first thing I'm going to do is share my presentation with you, which is a reflection on my time as a high school student and the time of 4 FHS alums from the 50s and 60s. So I stand here before you with a month's worth of emails and interviews and compiling and transcribing finished. But this project for me didn't start a month ago or even 2 months ago, but 2 years ago in Mr. Willette's old classroom. So it was the end of sophomore year, and we had a little bit of time before the class ended, and the new wing had just been finished. So I was like curiously looking online at old pictures of the high school because I wanted to see how it compared to the new one, when I stumbled upon this image. It was a Clarion from 1894. 1894. And this was like, for me, because I am a current devoted member of our Clarion staff today, but yeah, this is really exciting. So I showed it to my friend Lily Horn, who is also on the Clarion staff, and then we brought it to Mrs. Blyer, who then showed us to the library, and Mrs. Moore showed us in the back of the library, in this small little closet on a tiny little shelf, are all of the yearbooks from 1894 up until present day. And these detail things like this 1918 one it's dedicated to soldiers in World War I. And there's also reflections on the emergence of car culture and the flashy styles of the 70s. And this really attracted me because, I mean, I look at with my family, especially my dad's side of the family, and my grandmother, we looked at their yearbooks all the time and their photographs, and I was intrigued by this. I was like, well, who else's grandparents might be up here, and what stories are waiting to be told? So that was my sophomore year, and then the fall of my junior year, I went to a program called City Term, and this was a 4-month program in New York City where I studied history. And there I learned a lot of skills that were crucial for me going into this project. I learned to keep the question open, which means knowing that there's not just one answer and that you should think divergently about multiple answers. I learned to identify patterns and anomalies. This is especially helpful when looking at multiple years of yearbooks because there's a huge span of time and you want to see what is the same and what's different. I learned how to talk to strangers, which also went with recording oral histories and being comfortable with people I don't know very well and helping the group feel vulnerable and ready to open up. Then I returned to FHS, spring of my junior year, and I was blessed to be in Mr. Stiver's American Studies class. And he was so honoring my skills and my time that I'd had at City Term, and he let me, with our 15-page research paper, start with not a thesis, but a question, because that was a huge thing I learned at City Term, that true research starts with a question and not an answer. And he let me look at these yearbooks. I went back to the yearbooks, I was still very intrigued, and I did a 15-page research paper about the commercialization and how the idea of the American teenager came to be. And what I discovered was that the group 13 to early 20s was not a labeled group until the 20th century, and this was because they got labeled, categorized, and stereotyped in order to be a group to sell to. And this really disgusted me because I have always felt that commercialization really cheapens the experience of being a teenager. I think that teens have really valid things to say, and that we don't make rash decisions necessarily. I think that a lot of teenagers are thoughtful and have important memories and experiences. And I was talking to my brother who studied cognitive science in college, and he showed me this graph. So on the x-axis is your age, and on the y-axis is the number of memories you have. So this would be a trend for people who are maybe in their later 60s, early 70s, and the green is their most recent memory, so obviously people tend to remember what's happened in the recent past. But that red bump right there is the teen years. And so people remember the most from their teenage years. And this is why I was kind of frustrated with this commercialization thing, because your teen years are formative for everybody, and everyone has a unique experience. So this brought me to senior year, and I was still waiting. I'd done the research, all of this stuff about teenagers is kind of in this gaseous state in my head, and I want to know what stories are waiting to be told from these yearbooks. I want to meet people. I was wondering what was different about Freeport High School in the past and what might have stayed the same. So I moved into the month and I did lots of emails, getting things set up, and I interviewed 4 alumni from 1957, 1961, 64, and 69. And it was hard for me to do the technology. That bit was really challenging for me. I wasn't used to microphones and everything, but I did make it through. And I also spent a lot of time transcribing the interviews. It took 3 minutes to transcribe 30 seconds. But this actually ended up being a really important part of my process, which I'll talk a little bit more about later. So now I'm going to share with you some clips from the people that I interviewed. They're going to introduce themselves. There's going to be a couple of memories from each person about things that they remember fondly from their childhood and teen years. And then there's going to be a little reflection that illustrates the point that teenagers maybe aren't always respected or weren't always respected in their thoughts. And as you listen to this, I didn't include any photos of what they're talking about. And I did this intentionally because I want you to notice if you're feeling like bored or like you need an image, because I want to invite you, if that's happening for you, to maybe close your eyes and really lean into the emotional connection and the emotion that they're portraying and try and imagine what they're talking about, because I think that the unfilteredness of their stories and how it doesn't have the Instagram filter on it, it doesn't have like a pre-made caption, and I think that's really beautiful. And like the stories they're telling, they don't imagine them in black and white, so why should I show you a black and white photo?
Well, since I'm nervous, I suppose I start. My name is Jane Grant, but it was Jane Kieran, Chiari, and I graduated from high school in '57.
Connie Coffin. I was Connie Sanders, and I graduated in 1961.
And I'm Polly Brand, and I graduated in '64.
I'm Brad Snow.
The baby of the group.
Graduated 50 years ago. I'm in class of 1969.
I think one of the biggest memories that I have of that whole era was the freedom that we have that kids don't have now. I mean, you know me, and it was never on time anywhere, but I was up and out of the house at 6 o'clock in the morning. My mother would have no idea where I was going, because I didn't know where I was going. It was just you'd be home by dinner time. But people didn't worry.
Oh, to play, yes, to go out to play, or...
Yeah, I mean, and even growing up, but even as you got towards the high school years, you could just do things and not be afraid of anything going
No
on.
bad guys.
You kind of made your own fun, I think. You know, one of the things that I used to do, which is going to sound stupid, is just walk the railroad tracks, just
Oh, we all did that.
for something to do.
I know you did.
Yeah.
Really? Where did you go? Where did you go?
Almost to Brunswick.
Devil's Drinking Cup.
Devil's
No,
Drinking
really?
Cup. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Do you even know where that is?
No.
Oh, my God. You haven't lived?
So my brother he worked ever since he was small. My brother Roger.
Yeah.
And he'd take his money and roll it up and put it in his stocking drawer. And one day he comes home with a 1960 Corvette. With the money he had rolled up in his, like $5,000 is what they were back then. But I couldn't touch it.
Oh, in the movies.
Oh, right, yes.
Nordica. Oh, my gosh.
They did.
At a
That was
bowling
our
alley, which we're not allowed to go
entertainment.
in.
Yeah.
No.
Oh, couldn't go in the bowling alley, because that was way too risque, right?
Well, yeah.
But you could go to the movies.
Yeah.
And you'd be sitting there in the movies in some very quiet part of the movie, and you could hear the bowling balls.
That's right.
Yeah,
We
that
didn't have
movie
much
theater
to
was
offer,
great.
did we? We had movies
And basketball.
and basketball. We were definitely local and not global at all, I think. Don't you think
I
that?
didn't pay much attention to global events when I was
Well,
growing
we
up.
didn't-
My grandfather used to get a newspaper every afternoon in the store where I worked, and I would kind of scan it after he had read it, but I don't remember, getting too excited about it.
But I think we were taught to sit and be quiet in school. So you didn't get your voice. You didn't have a voice, really. You
Just
sat and
listened.
took in whatever it was that was going on. And you got it or you didn't get it, right? So I don't think you were expected to participate truly as a thinker.
Aren't they wonderful? I really love them a lot. So now I'm going to talk a little bit about a part of my project that I haven't mentioned yet that was really big part for me. So the first week of projects, I had a really great sadness come for me. My grandmother passed away, and she was a really dear friend of mine, and this really stalled my projects for a little bit. I mean, I had the regularly scheduled, really intense, 4 AP classes, and I had 9 musical performances this month, plus rehearsals, so I was really busy already, and I wanted to get, really good exam grades for college, and this event put a really big stall on my project. And I, by week 3, hadn't missed any school yet, because APs, and I was seriously considering laying down the project because I couldn't compartmentalize. I mean, my peers and their parents always tell me that I do too much, and I don't really mind that because I think the classes I take are stimulating and the communities that I found in music are unparalleled. But this was the first time in high school I'd really felt overwhelmed. But I have a wonderful advisor, Ms. Cook, and she reminded me to scale back my project from Abbey-level expectations and put them back in a normal realm, and maybe take away the video component and have the audio component. And what I spent my time doing was just transcribing. I did only 4 people, and I spent a lot of time with just those 4 stories. And what happened for me as I spent hours transcribing is I really got this sense of healing, and it made me feel so much better and helped me move through because the people I was interviewing were kind of the age of my grandmother, and it really helped me move through. And so my biggest takeaways from this were that teens do have profound things to say, as you can tell from their reflections and as I looked at in the yearbooks that I saw, and also that unfiltered stories nourish empathy, creating connection, and for me, essential maturity. And I want to encourage everyone here today to go out and share your stories, please. I think that teenagers have many wonderful things to say, and it is the most memorable part of our lives. So I hope that you all go and share your stories in order to build connections with other people. All right, now for my thank yous. I would love to say thank you to the Historical Society, Jim Cran, the historical director. I know he's here right now. Thank you so much for helping me find people to interview. To Polly Brand, Brad Snow, Jane Grant, and Connie Coffin for sitting down with me and taking their time to share their stories and be vulnerable and tell me some wonderful, wonderful things. To Janice Gary, who also emailed me some of her stories about her time in high school. And Holly Hurd, who's the librarian collector at the Historical Society, and also to my advisors, Ms. Cook, thank you so much. Ms. Levitt and Ms. Peterson, thank you for being organized, helping me keep on track and making sure I knew where everything was, and of course to my parents. Questions? Yeah? Yes?
Is there a place where we can go to, where you compiled all of these stories so we can hear them?
Yeah, so I haven't publicly put the files out yet, and I'm not sure if I will, but that could be a next step. And I was just keeping them for me, but maybe there will be a place to put those. Yeah. Yes, Ms. Meyer.
Did you find that when listening to these stories, did you feel a little envious of living at a time when there wasn't so much social media and things were more unfiltered?
So the question was, do I feel a little envious listening to these stories of a time when there was no media and experiences were a little more unfiltered? And I would say I did a little bit. Although I love the friends that I have now, and I really am enjoying my time in high school and the opportunities I've had, especially with my music and I mean, I have a car available to me, and I have parents who are able to bring me to music rehearsals, which I don't know if that would have been, those groups would have even been around in that time, and that's been a really important part of my high school experience. But I do. I don't engage too much in social media. I only have Instagram. I post maybe like a couple every other month or whatever, but yeah.